Over the last year, I have had the privilege to talk to hundreds of men in my coaching sessions, one-on-one, in the newly formed group sessions, and I've read their emails, I've read their text messages, I've read their comments, and I've come to the conclusion that there is one factor, more than any other single factor, that contributes to the divorce rate that we're seeing, and not only the divorce rate, but I would argue the destruction of marriage as an institution in our society. One thing that women do, and I don't even think they're fully aware of how destructive it is, and that's emasculation. Emasculation, in my opinion, not only does it tear down a marriage, dissolve a marriage, a family, but it also destroys a man that often leads to him taking his own life. And it makes marriage an institution that is failing because men don't want to get into it. Men do not want to go down that path because any way you cut it, emasculation is emotional and psychological abuse. And women get away with it, and they're supported and even encouraged to do it at every level of our society. So today, I want to talk about emasculation, how it affects men, how it appears in relationships, why it appears, and what we can do about it. This is Life 2.0. Let's talk about it. The irony in this whole situation, of course, is that women like to think of themselves as the more emotionally intelligent gender. And emotional intelligence usually means that you have an awareness of how the things you're saying are affecting the people you're saying them to. Yet any psychiatrist or therapist or psychologist or anyone else in the mental health field will tell you that the tactics that they're using, the specific ways that they're implementing emasculation is emotional and psychological abuse. And if you did it to a child, you'd probably have that child removed from your home. But they are doing it every single day to men. And I don't think they understand just what that means to men. There's a huge misunderstanding that women have when it comes to men and relationships. Women think that men are adversarial with women when it comes to relationships, and nothing could be further from the truth. Men love women at a deep and intense level. When a woman that a man loves deeply commits to him and he commits to her, he becomes single-focused. His mission in life is to make that relationship work, is to be everything that woman needs him to be. He wants nothing more than to win her praise and appreciation at every single turn. And I would argue that from the very beginning, right after the wedding bells, right after the honeymoon, they get home and he is doing everything he can think of to be the best man that he can possibly be. And yet something happens in there after that wedding occurs. And it's subtle at first. And it's these little teeny tiny insults, these little teeny tiny emasculating comments to help remove that man's sense of confidence and power and to shift that power away from him and into her hands. And it's very, very subtle in the beginning, but it becomes more and more dramatic over time. And every single time it happens, that man loses just a little teeny tiny bit of himself. Every single day of his life, it gets worse and worse and worse. In my own marriage, I did not recognize emasculation. In fact, I didn't even really fully understand what emasculation was and how it would appear in my life. It started off with little things like her expressing dissatisfaction with the fact that I wouldn't come home from work and immediately take over the baby. I remember that was a big thing right away. And she would be very critical of me and really call into question my commitment to the relationship, my commitment to my child, my commitment to our lives together. Because after working a very long day, I'm the only one who's working, and she's staying home with a baby, that I would not just take over control of that baby the moment I walked in the door. The idea that I needed some time to transition from work mind, change my clothes, get into something comfortable, and maybe sit down and relax for half an hour or so was just not in her head. She believed that my job was easier than her role of being a stay-at-home mom with an infant. And she made it clear to me that that's what she believed. So you can see the emasculation that's occurring here. Number one, she's being critical of me right from the very beginning, that I'm not doing something that I should be doing as a man and as a father and as a husband. So that's extremely emasculating. Number two, she's telling me that my job, that's paying all the bills, is not as hard as her job staying at home babysitting. That I am not as important to the well-being of the family as she is. Yeah, that kind of eats away at you, you know? It's no wonder I didn't want to talk to her for a while after that, you know? But that was a recurring theme in our relationship after our daughter was born. Those kinds of emasculating comments, and I didn't even realize that's what it was when it was happening. I just thought, she's being a bitch. Like, what the fuck is wrong with her? What happened to the woman that I married? Who the hell is this cunt? Because I don't get it. Why am I going through this? Why am I dealing with this crap from this woman that I've given everything to? I've made every one of her dreams come true. I have committed myself to her. I have bought this house. I have paid every bill. I have gotten her pregnant. I was there in the delivery room. I was there with the labor. I held her hand through the entire thing. I get up in the middle of the night and take care of this baby. I take this baby on the weekends. I am doing everything a man can do within reason to help her with this baby. Her job is to sleep when the baby sleeps, and to be awake when the baby's awake, and to feed the baby and change his diapers. That was her job. She resented the hell out of it. And I, as the husband and the father and the one who impregnated her, was responsible for this whole mess, obviously on some level. And that gave her the right to emasculate me early in our relationship. And that's not where it ended. I mean, it just went on and on and on and on. Fast forward a decade or so, and she's decided that she's paid her dues as a wife. She no longer has to be intimate with me anymore. Like, she can forego sex from now on. Like, that's the end of sex. Like, she's just not going to do that anymore. Now, we did have sex a few more times after that, but it was few and far between. When you're withholding intimacy, that is a form of abuse. But it was beyond just the intimacy, because it was also just words of kindness. It was affection. It was just giving approval for me in any way, shape, or form. It was just a very low-grade level of cruelty that occurred continuously for 15 years, maybe longer, 18 years. Just a low-grade level of cruelty. And like I said, I was not aware of emasculation as a thing back in those days. It was not something that ever occurred to me. But as I reflect back on it now, I can clearly see how these emasculating tactics worked on me, and how they got in my head, and how they made me feel like less of a man every single day. And I remember in some videos in the past, I talk a little bit about how maybe I simped at that stage, where I was trying to win back her approval. But it was because of these emasculating statements and this emasculating environment that I was in 24/7. I was sort of immersed in this continuous withholding of affection and love, and this constant criticism that caused me to try to do something to save the relationship. But all that had done, my behaviors at that time, was play into the emasculation. What I had done by trying to win back her favor is I was playing exactly the role that she wanted me to play. I was allowing the manipulation to control me. She had taken away my masculine power by withholding the things that I wanted most: her approval, her affection, her intimacy, and giving me the things that I feared the most, her criticism, her anger, her venom, you know? She would just walk around the house with a sour face, not talking to me for hours and hours at a time. No idea what the hell's going on. I don't know what I did wrong. You know, being in my own home felt like some kind of a prison where I was constantly being tortured by the warden. And, you know, as I look back on it and as I talk to guys in the coaching sessions and we get into some of these details, it becomes really clear at just how screwed up women are in the way that they communicate with men when they're unhappy. They don't know how to communicate well. So when they tell us that they're emotionally intelligent, there is no truth to that at all. That is a complete lie. That is a fabrication of the feminine, I don't know, world. It just is not true in any way at all. So there are three basic types of emasculation that occur most frequently in romantic relationships. The first one I talked about a little bit already, and that's when a woman is withholding affection, withholding intimacy, withholding approval. She's holding back something that you as a man need in a relationship. This is the fuel that men live off of when we're in a committed relationship. Like I said earlier, men love women. And when we get into a relationship with a woman, we are all in. We are committed 100%. We want this relationship to work more than anyone. And we're willing to do whatever it takes to make this relationship work. But we can't do that without some fuel. And that fuel that we live off of is attention, it's appreciation, it's kindness, it's respect, it's affection and intimacy. This is the stuff that makes men putty in the hands of women. If you give a man those kinds of behaviors, if you treat him with that kind of respect and affection and approval and all that stuff, man, guys are like dogs. They will just walk, they'll just do anything you want, you know? It's like you're giving them treats. They'll do anything that you want. But when you withhold that, you really rip out his heart. There's no other way to put it. I mean, you just tear out his heart. It's like, it's a pain that's really hard to describe because it's so profound. And it's like something that's so deep inside you. It's like a feeling you've never really had. And you just feel this sinking inside you, like this emptiness opening up within you. And you think, I don't know how to respond to that. You know, it's like you just don't even have an answer for what do you say in that moment. You know, when she says we're not going to have sex anymore, what do you even say? You know, it's very hard to have an answer because it's not anything that any of us ever even imagined as we were getting into the relationship. The next thing, the second one, is criticism. When a woman is continuously being critical of a man's behavior or his the way he's performing his role as a father or as a husband, the way he's not providing or protecting well enough in some way, shape, or form, that tears at a man just the same way. Because a man really wants to identify himself in a powerful way with the masculine archetype of a father, of a husband. You know, we want to fill that role that we have in our minds. We always compare to our own fathers and we always think I'm going to be better than that or I'm going to be as good as him. Whatever it may be, we have this idea in our head and it's impossible for us to escape it. And when we are told by the woman that we've committed ourselves to, the one that we love more than anything in the world, that we're not living up to that, man, that really rips our hearts out again. Again, it's that same sinking feeling. And then the final one is when women start treating men like children, when they start talking over him, when they start limiting his ability to get free time. Like, you know, he just needs to get out of the house. And you stand in front of the door to block him, to not let him go out. When you're egging him on, when you're pushing him to take a physical reaction to your behaviors. And really what you're doing is as a woman, is you're showing that you have all the power. Because now, at a physical level, you are the parent and he is the child. You're in control and he is not. So you have taken all of his masculinity at this point. You have confronted him in a physical way, and he does nothing because you realize that you have control over him. Because he knows that if he takes any kind of physical action against you, he will be the one that is, in jail. He's the one that pays the price. And you're just almost egging him on. You're almost pushing him to take that next step, to slap you, to push you, to do anything. I mean, you're just creating the circumstances for it to happen. And if it doesn't happen, you win, because now you're showing that you're dominant. And if it does happen, you win, because now you've got the police and the law on your side, and you can take whatever actions you want against him. It is a lose-lose situation for a man. So now that we've described these behaviors, why do women do this? Frequently, it's the old hurt people dynamic, where women who have been abused or traumatized at some point in their life, they become the abuser. My ex-wife had an alcoholic father and a mother who nagged him and emasculated him constantly. Her two older sisters were both pregnant as teenagers. One of them was a drug addict, and she died, I don't know, like 10 years ago in her 40s from complications of hepatitis as a result of being an intravenous drug user. The other one, although she had a successful career in the insurance industry, became a chronic alcoholic, and she died from cirrhosis of the liver. She also has a teenage bride. Clearly, I missed some red flags. When I met her sisters, I should have thought, that's really interesting that my bride doesn't have any of these problems. She's very pretty and pulled together, and she seems to have all seems to be just fine. But her two sisters, who were quite a bit older than her, my wife was about 8 years younger than the youngest sister she had. So they were 8 and 10 years older than her. But they were completely effed up. Like, these women were not right at all in any way, shape, or form. But being in that environment with this alcoholic father who was out to all hours of the night drinking, he was not abusive to them, at least not that I had heard. I mean, well, I think he had been a little bit abusive to the older girls because they were so rebellious and they were acting out. I think he may have hit them, but he never hit my ex-wife. And then the constant emasculation that his wife performed on him. And here's the ironic thing, is he died right before I met her. And they all talk about how beautiful his death was and how they were all there in hospice around him as he died and how they all missed him and loved him, and the funeral was just tearful, and we've all been to the grave and everyone says such nice things about him. But you know something? That guy and his wife together created an environment in that home that resulted in 3 women who went out into the world and caused enormous amounts of destruction in their lives and in the lives of the people that they touched. Now, they weren't just all terrible. I'm not going to say that at all. They all did some nice things. They had some nice families, but all of their lives fell apart. Either divorced or single mothers, the whole 9 yards, drinking, drugs. They were, abjectly, they suffered. They suffered a lot. And the people in their lives suffered a lot. So trauma from childhood, I think, plays a significant difference, a significant role. The second one is you do get women who have personality disorders. We've talked about cluster B and that sort of thing, and there's psychopathy, and there's lots of other issues associated with women using emotional and psychological torture on their husbands. And they do it intentionally. I think that most women are the traumatized version, and they don't realize how evil their behavior is. I don't think they understand how vile they're being and how repugnant their behavior is. Because I think if they were aware of it, they would at least try to withhold. They would at least try to find a different path, or they would apologize when they became aware of it. The irony here is I don't think most men are even aware of it. Hell, I wasn't aware of what the hell it was. I just knew I had this sinking feeling inside me that made me feel like I was less of a man, And Yeah, so I think there's lots of guys out there that are suffering in these sorts of relationships where they're being emasculated day in and day out by women who have no idea what's going on. And then there's those handful that got lucky and they married one of the real nut jobs, and they're with a psychopath or a narcissist or someone who's got these cluster B personality disorders. And God help you if you're in one of those, because she's going to continue that, and there's probably no way for you to get clear of it without divorcing her. I mean, that's probably the only thing that you can do. For men in a relationship where emasculation is being employed by his wife, by his partner, by his loved one, as a means of controlling him, which is what it is, and taking his power from him. Basically how it unfolds is it's a death by 1,000 cuts. It's not like one comment or one thing completely destroys him. It's just day after day after day living in an environment of toxicity where it's like the goldfish in the bowl that water never gets changed, and it just gets more and more toxic. He married a woman that he thought was Superwoman, but now he becomes like Clark Kent's nerdy alter ego, where he's getting pushed around all the time. And she's this untouchable force for evil, if you will, who just is pushing him around all the time, like the bully in school, where you can't even punch back. Because if you do, then you're the bad guy. So the guy's going to withdraw. That's all that happens. He's got to go into the man cave. He's going to try to find some place to work. He's going to be in the garage all the time. He doesn't want to be around her. He doesn't want to be around the family. He's not going to go on trips anymore. He's happy when she leaves. It creates a divide within the family, which is, of course, an enormous cause for women then to victimize themselves and say, well, he's never with us. He's not engaged with the family. So when they go to therapy, she can go and tell the therapist about how he spends all his time doing something else. He's never with us. He never wants to be around. And the poor guy is like, yeah, well, she's really a bitch. Like, what does he say? She's really mean to me. It just doesn't come off very believable coming out of a man's mouth in front of a professional. And not only that, but we men have a really tough time putting this all together in a coherent narrative as to what's actually happening. Like, why am I feeling this way? What's actually happening? I'm being bullied by this tiny little woman, and I could literally knock her head off, but I can't because she's a woman. And now I'm the bad guy because I'm getting bullied all the time, and she's the victim because I don't want to be around her anymore. Do you know what I mean? It's like you lose. There's just no way through it. There's just no way through it. Once that emasculation starts, you are condemned to a life of misery. There's just no way around it. So, if you're in a relationship right now and you're getting this kind of feedback, you're getting emasculated, your wife is withholding, she's criticizing, she's dominating, she's being a complete bitch. First thing you need to assume is that she has some hidden trauma. And you need to get her not just to a therapist, but maybe to a full-on psychologist where they need to do the full hypnotic regression and find out what the hell happened in her childhood that's causing her to act this way. Because this kind of behavior is it's a mental illness, and it's not being well diagnosed by professionals, at least not up until now. Maybe now we'll start to see some at least awareness for this behavior. You need to talk to her, and you need to talk to her about what emasculation is and what it means to you and how it makes you feel at a very deep level. You got to open up and say, in a quiet time, away from the event, you got to go back and revisit this situation and open up and say, honey, you can't talk to me like that ever again. And here's why. Because when you do that, you are taking my role away from me as a provider and a protector in this household. If you have criticism of something that I'm doing or the way that I'm doing it, I need you to express it to me like I'm an adult, like I'm someone that you care about, someone that you love. And if you're unhappy with me for something that I have done or said, then we need to have a conversation about it like adults. You can't withhold affection from me. You can't just, from that point forward, walk around here like some kind of a spoiled brat and not talk to me like you're a teenage girl who's, not getting her way, because that just is not going to work. And if it continues, then I can't stay in this marriage anymore. Like, I can't be with you anymore. We're going to have to separate. We're going to have to find another path forward separately. But you can't continue to stay there. Because what ends up happening to guys who stay in these kinds of relationships, first of all, it removes such a huge part of your personality and who you are as a man. It literally tears away at your soul, and it makes it really hard for you to ever trust another woman, ever. And like I said earlier, the number of men who come out of a divorce and take their own life very quickly after they've separated is very, very high. The rate of men taking their own lives is, the number of men who take their own lives is greater than the number of women who die from breast cancer every year. Think about that for a second. Think about all the attention that we give breast cancer in the press, in the media, on the NFL. They have their pink laces and all that crap, and we're all, Breast Cancer Awareness Month and all that stuff. Is there any awareness month for men who have been abused by traumatized and mentally ill women in relationships that they've committed themselves to? At the beginning of this, I told you that men love women. We're single-minded when we get into relationships. We want them to work. We do not want a divorce. No man gets into a marriage thinking, yeah, if this doesn't work right away, then I'm gonna bail. They want to stay in it no matter what. I've talked to so many men who are in such difficult situations that I've told them they need to get out. Like, you just can't stay there anymore. You are risking your freedom, because eventually she's going to crack and she's going to call the cops and she's going to tell them some kind of a stupid crack-ass story, and you're going to be bent over a police car, having your rights read to you for something that you didn't even do, because that's the way it frequently works out. Women are the victims and men are the perpetrators. That's the way it looks on the surface. But behind the curtain, when you pull it back just a tiny little bit, you see that that is not necessarily always the case. And frequently, I would say more than 50% of the time, the reason why a marriage fails is because a woman resorts to emasculation of her husband on a continuous basis until that marriage just can't bear the weight of his pain anymore, and then it ends. Anyway, you guys, like I said, if you're in a relationship with a woman who's doing this to you, you need to get her in front of a psychologist. You need to have conversations with her. You cannot allow this to continue. You've got to stand up for yourself. The only way it stops is if you stand up for yourself. And if it's gone past that point where standing up for yourself probably is not an option, and she's unwilling to go get help from a therapist or a psychologist, then you just got to leave. You just got to pick your moment and get out of there, because the longer you stay, the worse it's going to get. That's all I got for you. I hope this has been educational. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe. If you know someone who might be experiencing this kind of crap, please send them the video. In the meantime, stay healthy, and if you can, stay single.